grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright.
So tell us about that. Whose idea was it to rent the vehicle?
Dietrich.
You have to speak up nice and loud.
Dietrich.
Did at any point all four of you expect to be armed with a firearm?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose of having a mask or masks, plural?
Robert Allen, one of 4 men convicted in the 2018 murder of XX. Tian was released from prison in October 2023. After striking a plea deal and testifying against his co-defendants before and after his release, he began working closely with police, prosecutors, and a jury. His statements became the most detailed account ever given from inside that Dodge journey, exposing new angles of what really happened on June 18, 2018. On June 18, 2018, the robbery took shape as Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, the rapper known as XXXTentacion, withdrew about $50,000 in cash from a Bank of America branch in South Florida. He placed the cash into a Louis Vuitton bag and drove to Riva Motorsport, a motorcycle and watercraft dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida. His step-uncle Leonard Kerr sat in the passenger seat of a black BMW i8.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of them had.
Trayvon Newsom do after he grabs the bag.
Onfroy was just 20 years old, moving through the dealership looking at motorcycles like it was an ordinary day. Unaware of what would follow at the time, Onfroy was already making headlines for his music and the legal attention surrounding him. His debut album had just dropped, and his growing fan base tracked his every move online. He was the kind of public figure whose car model could be identified from an Instagram post. His life was so visible that a man at a probation office months earlier recognized him and mentally stored that encounter for later. At the same time, 4 men out of Fort Lauderdale were rolling through South Florida in a rented black Dodge Journey SUV, moving with a tense purpose. They had been circling the area with guns, masks, and a loose plan to hit whoever looked like an easy target. The group included Dedrick Devin, Shea Williams, Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, and Robert Allen. Williams, Boatwright, and Allen were all 22, while Newsom was only 20, the same age as the man they were soon tied to killing. Williams, known on the street as Chucky, already had a long record behind him, including grand theft, carte martial, burglary, assault, and cocaine possession. He was on probation during this time and worked as a tattoo artist, also hazing 4 children. He was behind the wheel that day, guiding the SUV through a decision that would change everything.
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright.
Where does he shoot him from? What side of the car?
Driving.
So if XXX is in the driver's seat and Michael Boatwright is in the driver's side, the shots are coming onto XXX's left side or right side? Which side?
Yes.
Williams is also the one who spotted the BMW i8 in the dealership lot and instantly recognized it. He had seen Onfroy before at a probation office and even remembered the car from Instagram posts. He pointed it out to the others, pulled up Onfroy's Instagram on his phone, and matched the photos to the exact vehicle sitting in front of them in real time. That moment locked in their focus on the target. The group treated it like confirmation, calling it their exit pass before anyone stepped out of the car. The SUV they were using had been rented just 1 day earlier, part of a quick setup for their plan. It was Williams' idea to use a rental vehicle for robberies to avoid tracing it back. They even used a woman named Tony Robinson to help secure the car, since Allen was the only one with a valid driver's license and needed to be the one behind the wheel. The plan, as Allen would later testify, was loose, messy, and totally unstructured. It was basically just drive around South Florida and rob whoever they could. Uber drivers, strangers, anyone they ran into on the way. They had not set out that morning specifically looking for Onfroy at all. They were just looking for anyone they thought they could hit. All 4 of them were expecting to be armed with guns, and everyone was supposed to have a mask ready. Allen had a Springfield .40 caliber handgun. Newsom carried a Smith & Wesson .38 revolver. Williams had his own .38 revolver, one with a distinct hammer, bow, and trigger setup that made it stand out. Boatwright had a .22 caliber short-barreled rifle. When the Dodge Journey rolled onto Dixie Highway and Williams spotted the BMW i8, everything shifted fast. The decision to target Onfroy was never clearly spoken. Out loud. It didn't even need to be. Williams told Allen and Newsom to go inside and confirm the identity. Boatwright and Newsom pushed Allen to go in with Williams so he could hear it directly from the source. Allen walked into the dealership and passed right by Onfroy, who was inside browsing with Kerr. Allen believed Onfroy didn't even notice him moving through the space. While inside, Williams bought 2 black neoprene masks at the counter like it was nothing out of the ordinary. They all walked back out to the SUV, tension building in silence. Once inside the car, Allen said it was a bad idea and warned that he and Williams had already been caught on the store's surveillance cameras.
Okay, so what was in the bag?
Money.
How much?
$50,000.
Boatwright and Newsom hesitated for a moment. Then Williams pushed the question, asking if they were scared. Boatwright finally responded in a tense way, basically saying, "All right, we're gonna get him." Newsom agreed, while Allen refused to get out of the vehicle since he was already caught on camera. Boatwright and Newsom pulled on masks and hoodies, locking in as Williams stayed behind the wheel. The Dodge Journey rolled across the street and parked. Then they waited in silence for 8 minutes and 35 seconds. That long wait was fully captured on surveillance video. At trial, the lead prosecutor, Pascal Chile, played that exact footage without a single cut for the jury. 8 minutes and 35 seconds of stillness meant to show what planning looks like in real time. When Onfroy and Kerr walked out of the dealership and got into the BMW, Williams moved instantly. He pulled the Dodge Journey forward and blocked their exit, shutting everything down in seconds. Boatwright and Newsom jumped out fast. Boatwright went to the driver's side window with a rifle while Newsom moved in close, reaching toward Onfroy and grabbing at his gold chain. It didn't come off. Newsom then rushed around the vehicle to the passenger side and got inside the BMW, grabbing the Louis Vuitton bag with the $50,000. Kerr was told to stay still in the passenger seat, and he did not resist. He managed to get away by running down the road and survive the encounter. Newsom came back with the bag and the robbery was already in motion. Then everything escalated in seconds. 3 shots were fired, striking Onfroy as the situation spiraled out of control. He was unarmed and had not reached for anything, and the money bag was already gone at that point. 1 round caused serious internal injuries, while the others remained inside his body. After the shots, the group fled the scene. Onfroy was rushed to Broward Health North Hospital and was pronounced dead at 4:51 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The 4 men took off in the Dodge Journey, trying to escape the scene, but things went sideways fast. During the getaway, they crashed the vehicle, forcing them to regroup and eventually make their way back to Allen's house on 17th Court. Williams later separated from the group and caught an Uber, on his own from that same location. Once they were back together, they opened the bag and saw exactly what they had taken. They split the cash into 4 separate piles in a rushed, tense exchange. Williams, Boatwright, and Newsom each walked away with $15,000, while Allen, who had stayed inside the car during the robbery, received only $5,000. Boatwright pushed back, arguing that Allen hadn't done enough during the incident to deserve an equal cut.
But it was like in shock. So I was Chucky. He was not in shock. That's what I said. Chucky wasn't in shock. He didn't really care.
Along with the cash, the group also divided up everything else they had taken, including firearms, the Louis Vuitton bag, bank slips, and the key fob tied to Onfroy's vehicle. All of it had been carried away during their return from the dealership, leaving a trail of evidence behind them. Shortly after, they learned through their phones that Onfroy had died from the shooting. The mood shifted, but not in a way that stopped what came next. That same day and into the next, their phones captured disturbing scenes that later became evidence. Cell phone videos posted online showed Williams, Boatwright, and Newsom flashing stacks of $100 bills, dancing and smiling just hours after the shooting. It was reckless and loud, like nothing had just happened. Dedrick Williams was arrested only 48 hours later during a traffic stop in Pompano Beach. He was still wearing orange sandals and a white tank top, the exact same outfit seen in the Riva surveillance footage and even in his Instagram posts from that day. He hadn't changed clothes, and he hadn't deleted anything from his social media. Boatwright was arrested on July 5th on separate drug charges, and while in jail, the murder warrant was officially served to him 5 days later. On July 10th, Allen was arrested in Georgia. He had traveled there on July 26th after leaving Florida more than a month after the crime, at one point moving with Boatwright before the two separated and went different directions. Meanwhile, Trayvon Newsom eventually turned himself in at his attorney's office on August 7th, closing in on the final piece of the case as law enforcement tightened the net around the entire group. He was the last of the 4 to get taken into custody. All 4 men were hit with charges of first-degree premeditated murder and armed robbery with a firearm. A grand jury indicted them in July 2018. The whole case was basically captured on camera from start to finish, from the moment Williams stepped into the dealership to the second the SUV disappeared down the road. Detectives had the whole chain locked in on video evidence. They had the group buying masks, waiting in the parking lot, setting up the ambush, and making the getaway. Every move was there. Who said what, who chose what, and how it all went down. A robbery that was already over still ended with a 20-year-old shot dead in his seat, and the missing piece of that puzzle had to come from someone inside the car. That person was Robert Allen. His testimony mattered the most. On paper, Allen looked like the least violent one in that Dodge journey. He stayed in the car during the robbery, took the smallest cut of the money, and even said before everything went down that it was a bad idea. But he also confirmed Onfroy's identity inside the store. He helped set up the rental car plan and played a role in the logistics of how things moved that day. He took $5,000 and stayed quiet for weeks without going to police. None of that made him innocent, and prosecutors knew it loud and clear. What it did make him was useful, because the story he could tell, if he told it fully and truthfully, was exactly the kind of account that could lock in 3 first-degree murder convictions. Getting him to tell the full story was handled by a detective named John Curcio, also known as Mongo. In a Broward County interrogation room, Allen would later describe the space as so tight and heavy it triggered his claustrophobia. The entire interrogation has since surfaced online and spread widely, showing every step of how his statement unfolded.
The easiest way to start talking about the case you're under arrest for, which is XXX's case, let's talk about the car, the Dodge Journey.
It starts with the usual formalities, recorded introductions, swearing in, and Allen's attorney sitting in the room as Curcio takes control of the questioning. What follows over the next half hour is a slow, methodical breakdown of his story. At first, Allen hedges and backtracks, using phrases like "I think" and "I guess" when pressed for details, but Curcio doesn't let it slide. He keeps circling back, calling out the uncertainty again and again. He tells Allen that even small lies can make everything else look unreliable, turning the pressure up step by step. Curcio also pushes hard on the evidence already stacked against him, saying fingerprints are tied to the car and surveillance footage already places him inside the Driftwood apartment complex. He points out that Williams has already given his version of events, tightening the pressure in the room even more. Bit by bit, Allen starts to shift, filling in more of the picture. He explains how Williams arranged the rental vehicle and how Tony Robinson's name was used on the app because the others couldn't rent it themselves. He describes arriving at Williams' house before heading toward Riva, where the group sat watching TV and talked through masks. He also recalls driving up Dixie Highway toward the dealership, the moment Williams first spotted the BMW i8 and identified Onfroy. Allen then describes being told to go inside and confirm it, locking him deeper into the chain of events. He begins naming the weapons in detail. He places each gun back at Chucky Williams' house and clearly identifies who carried what during the entire sequence. He describes the tense moment in the parking lot when Williams pointed out Onfroy's jewelry. Bracelets, necklaces, rings, and how that conversation shifted the energy in the car. He also recalls speaking up and saying it was not a good idea, only to be ignored, as the group pushed forward anyway. Allen then walks through the return to his house, describing the cash split laid out in stacks of $10,000 and the cold, immediate aftermath of what they had just done. He explains driving back from Riva with the full weight of the situation starting to sink in as reality set in after the chaos. That interrogation became the foundation of a partial confession. But the plea deal nearly 4 years later demanded even more. Allen had to turn that framework into full testimony in court. On August 12, 2022, Allen pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed robbery with a firearm. In exchange, the first-degree premeditated murder charge, carrying a mandatory life sentence, was dropped, but only on the condition of full cooperation and testimony against Williams, Boatwright, and Newsom.
All right, what kind of gun did Boatwright have?
Something like small, real small.
Okay, well, like that, like a rifle or a handgun?
Right.
Allen understood exactly what that meant. His freedom depended on it. The joint trial began on February 7, 2023, in Broward County Circuit Court before Judge Michael A. Usan. Allen took the stand on February 8th and testified through February 13th, spending 4 days under questioning. His testimony gave prosecutors the missing structure that surveillance footage alone could not provide. The cameras only showed 2 masked figures near a vehicle, but Allen told the jury he could identify exactly who was behind those masks. He walked them through the planning inside the car, explaining how Williams directed the entire operation from the driver's seat with tight control. He described Boatwright and Newsom arming themselves, the moment the SUV moved to block the BMW, and the sudden speed as both men jumped out to act. This matched the prosecution's framing from the very beginning. Allen's testimony was built to support that outline step by step, locking in each detail for the jury.
Okay, what happens is when they see him?
Chucky cuts him off.
Okay, so you guys had to talk about something.
It was basically me talking to him. I was just, I'm gonna go to jail for the rest of my life. They're like, you'll be all right. It's not gonna happen to you.
Boatwright at the driver's side window holding the rifle. Newsom going after Onfroy's chain, then moving straight for the bag, Newsom returning to the SUV with it secured, followed by shots fired without any clear provocation. Allen told the court directly that as Newsom grabbed the bag, the shots were fired. He identified Michael Boatwright as the shooter and stated that Boatwright fired 2 or 3 times. He placed Onfroy on the left side of the vehicle during the shooting and described the entire confrontation as lasting around 3 minutes. He also testified that on the drive away from Riva, the group learned that Onfroy had died. Boatwright then turned the music up inside the vehicle, a detail that stood out sharply in court. Defense attorneys worked aggressively to break down Allen's credibility over several days. They labeled him a 12-time felon and a career liar acting out of self-preservation. They argued that he had changed his story between his 2018 interrogation and his 2023 testimony to better match what prosecutors needed. Boatwright's attorney was especially forceful, pressing Allen on every inconsistency, every hesitation, every "I think" and "I guess" he had used years earlier. Allen didn't break down on the stand. Instead, he admitted something blunt and uncomfortable. He wanted a lighter sentence. He also acknowledged he was not a trustworthy person by any standard measure. Still, he told the jury directly that he had remorse, saying he would like a lighter sentence, but also that he felt real regret. He spoke about sitting in court and seeing families crying, explaining that he was trying to do his part to bring justice for Onfroy's family, friends, and fans. The defense then ran into a major problem. Everything Allen described could be checked against physical evidence, and it matched. DNA recovered from the black neoprene masks purchased inside Riva and used during the robbery linked Dedrick Williams with statistical odds described as rarer than 1 in 8.31 octillion. Another mask contained DNA tied to Boatwright with odds even more extreme, around 1 in 9.29 nonillion. These figures were presented by forensic analyst Nicole Ayana from the Broward County Crime Lab, adding heavy scientific weight to the case. Further digital and forensic evidence built the timeline even tighter. Boatwright's phone pinged in the area at the exact moment of the shooting, and it had Bluetooth connections paired with the rented Dodge Journey. Investigators also recovered a box of .22 caliber bullets from Boatwright's home that was missing exactly 4 rounds, the same number of shots fired at Onfroy. A separate .22 caliber bullet was also recovered from Williams's residence. On top of that, Boatwright's fingerprints were found on the exterior driver's side door of Onfroy's BMW. His phone history also showed searches related to accessory after the fact and accessory to murder shortly after the shooting. Meanwhile, Williams's then-girlfriend, Elle Carter, provided independent testimony that supported parts of the timeline and activity surrounding the group. She told the jury that Williams had directly confessed to her that he planned and orchestrated both the robbery and the murder. She also testified that he later tried to pressure her into signing a false affidavit, claiming he was not the getaway driver in the case. She refused to go along with it, standing firm under pressure. At the same time, tensions were rising even inside the courthouse holding area. A Broward sheriff's deputy observed Trayvon Newsom yelling at Allen during transport, calling him a police and a sellout and accusing him of working with the white man. Allen later testified about that intimidation attempt, and it became one of the more talked about moments of the trial. Defense attorneys also attempted to introduce a controversial alternate theory involving rapper Drake, pointing to a years-old public feud between Onfroy and Drake as a possible motive. However, investigators and witnesses dismissed that angle completely. As unsupported and irrelevant to the evidence presented, Allen was clear and direct in his testimony. He stated that no outside party was involved and that the crime was a spontaneous robbery with no external orchestration. During jury deliberations, jurors requested access to nearly 1,200 text messages extracted from the defendants' phones. They spent more than 27 hours deliberating across 8 days, which sparked online speculation about a possible hung jury. Legal commentators noted the complexity of the case, involving 3 defendants, 3 separate defense teams, and a massive body of digital and forensic evidence that had to be reviewed piece by piece. Even the text messages alone required hours of careful reading and comparison against testimony and timelines. Despite the long deliberation, analysts stressed that the extended process was not a sign of weakness in the prosecution's case. It reflected the weight and detail of the evidence the jury had to sort through. Then, on March 20th, 2023, the jury finally returned to the courtroom. Guilty. All 3 defendants, on all counts. First-degree murder and armed robbery with a firearm. As the verdict was read in court, Michael Boatwright turned toward Onfroy's family in the gallery and blew a kiss, a moment that instantly froze the room in disbelief. The sentencing hearing came on April 6, 2023. 3 men stood before Judge Michael A. Usan, waiting to hear what remained of their lives, knowing the number would define everything from that moment forward. And when it came down, the outcome was the same for all 3, every single one. For Trayvon Newsom and Dedrick Williams, the sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mandatory, non-negotiable, delivered with the cold procedural weight of a verdict already shaped by the law. For Michael Boatwright, the man identified as the shooter who had blown a kiss at the victim's family, the sentence was even heavier, consecutive life sentences without parole, plus an additional consecutive 30 years. Judge Usan addressed him directly in court, stating that he turned a robbery into a murder the moment he fired the weapon. He told Boatwright that in doing so, he didn't just end one life, he effectively destroyed 5, including his own future. The judge went further, describing in stark terms what that sentence meant in reality. He told Boatwright he would spend the rest of his life in a prison cell with only a stainless steel slab for a bed, alongside a sink and toilet built into the same surface. He made it clear that the only way out would be death, saying that only then would the sentence truly be complete. Boatwright sat through the sentencing without showing any visible reaction at all. The courtroom stayed tense and heavy, but he remained still, giving nothing away as the judgment was delivered. 6 weeks later, on May 17, 2023, Robert Allen returned to that same courtroom for his own sentencing. What the room heard from him was something the others had never truly offered in any meaningful way. Direct acknowledgement of what had been done, spoken clearly to the people impacted by it. Allen told the judge, "If I have to die in prison, then so be it. I know the risk I was taking. Let justice be served. Please forgive me." Judge Usan noted on the record that Allen had demonstrated what he described as genuine remorse, something noticeably absent in the proceedings for the other defendants. The judge also considered Allen's cooperation beyond this case. He had provided information that helped establish probable cause in an unrelated ZMF gang cold case homicide investigation, and prosecutors informed the court that his cooperation had placed him at real personal risk due to retaliation concerns from gang-affiliated individuals. Onfroy's family had been consulted prior to the plea agreement and ultimately accepted the resolution. Allen was sentenced to 7 years in prison, with credit for approximately 4 years, 9 months, and 21 days already served in pretrial detention. That calculation left him with roughly 2 years remaining, meaning much of the sentence had effectively already been completed through time served while awaiting trial. On October 26, 2023, Robert Allen, the 4th man involved, was released from prison. He stepped out into 20 years of probation conditions that tightly controlled his life. A monitored home environment, weekly phone check-ins with his probation officer, mandatory in-person meetings every 6 weeks, and a strict court order banning any contact with Onfroy's family. He was also prohibited from publicly resurfacing or turning his past into a media story. For a time, he didn't. The world largely moved on, and things went quiet. But then, in October 2024, from inside Martin Correctional Institution in Florida, where Michael Boatwright was being held after his conviction, the shooter managed to access Instagram and post online. What he shared echoed the same defiant attitude he had shown since the day 3 shots were fired into a 20-year-old's neck. He wrote, "I'm not sorry for nothing I did," and added that he was not an evil person. The post spread instantly, reigniting public attention. Onfroy's mother responded publicly, and fans who had followed the case since 2018 were pulled right back into the story. Clips and reactions spread rapidly across YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, reaching new audiences who had never heard of Boatwright, and others who had never been able to forget him. The irony of it stood out sharply. The same man whose phone had once helped investigators track him, through searches, location data, and Bluetooth connections to a getaway vehicle, was again using a phone to project his voice from inside prison. The digital trail that once exposed him had come full circle in a very different form. In November 2024, Williams' legal team filed an appeal brief attempting to reopen an old argument involving Drake, a Toronto rapper who had been publicly linked through a long-running feud with Onfroy. The filing pointed to an Instagram post and revived claims about alleged tension between the two artists, presenting it as a possible basis for reasonable doubt. However, Drake had already been subpoenaed during the original trial and was formally cleared by the court. The judge had excused him, and investigators had already ruled out any celebrity involvement throughout the entire case. Under oath, Allen had also stated clearly that no outside individuals played any role in the crime. The appeal ultimately introduced no new evidence, only revisited arguments already examined and rejected. As of early 2026, none of the convictions have been overturned. Williams remains at Wakulla Correctional Institution serving life without parole. Boatwright also pursued a direct appeal under the case name Michael Boatwright versus B. State of Florida, case number 4D23-0975, but it was denied by the Florida District Court of Appeal in 2025. The court rejected claims related to severance, co-defendant issues, and challenges to the sufficiency of the evidence. The convictions and sentences all remain in place. Meanwhile, Robert Allen's path moved in a different direction. In September 2025, the court granted him limited permission to travel across the United States for work as a licensed individual, marking a quieter but significant shift in his post-case life. CDL truck driver. His address remains sealed, his probation is still active, and no violations have been reported at all. No new charges have been filed either. He is, by all accounts, somewhere on the road across the United States, still under probation supervision that stretches all the way until 2043. In March 2026, the case went viral again. Not because anything new happened, but because the internet resurfaced it on its own. Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, X threads, and online forums began recirculating mugshots, old headlines, and news clips from years earlier. Some posts carried captions like, XXXTentacion murder suspect Robert Allen released after 5 years. Even though many of them incorrectly placed his release in 2025 instead of October 2023. The outrage that followed was real, even if the timeline being shared was distorted. The core emotional reaction, though, stayed the same. People were asking the same question they had been asking for years, whether Allen's outcome actually qualified as justice. There is no simple legal answer to that question. From the prosecution's perspective, the answer was clear and fully documented. Lead prosecutor Pascal Achille put it bluntly during closing arguments. Plans hatched in hell do not have angels for witnesses. He emphasized that co-conspirator testimony comes from co-conspirators, and without Allen's cooperation, the masks might never have been identified. The roles might still be disputed, and the case itself could have remained in legal uncertainty for years. In that framing, the plea deal wasn't just a benefit to Allen. It was the mechanism that allowed the convictions and life sentences for the other 3 defendants to hold in court. The human side of this story hits differently. Onfroy was just 20 years old, out shopping for motorcycles, carrying $50,000 in cash he legally withdrew from his own bank account. 4 men spotted his car, confirmed his identity, bought masks right there while he was still nearby, and then waited in a parking lot for 8 minutes and 35 seconds in total silence and tension. They blocked his exit, hit him with an armed robbery, and then the situation escalated even further, ending with him being shot 3 times after the robbery was already over. One of those 4 men, the one who had warned it was a bad idea but still went along anyway, is now driving a commercial truck somewhere across the United States today. Meanwhile, the other 3 are serving life sentences and will ultimately die behind bars in cells with stainless steel beds and no way out. Robert Allen was the one who broke the silence first, inside a police interrogation room, and later again on the witness stand in court. He broke it one final time during sentencing, standing before a judge who accepted his remorse as genuine. In contrast, the other 3 men said nothing meaningful, admitted nothing, and showed no remorse through every public moment the system captured. Now the verdicts, the sentencing, and even the prison posts are part of what they are paying for every single day. That is what speaking cost Allen, and what silence cost everyone else involved. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment your thoughts below.